set off the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business of approval of minutes. Been read and reviewed. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
Who motioned and seconded, sorry?
My motion.
Second.
Al, Deb.
Did you say you wanted to table the discussion on Edgewood till later?
No, they're all here.
You all here? Okay. We're going to have discussion on the Edgewood Farm project for the Rockwell property.
So, the proposal here, just want to get to the right place. Bob, do you want to hand out your plans for everyone? So, Edgewood has been before the planning board to approve new development on what you would formerly know as the Rockwell parcel. That's been approved. The access to the development is over what is the existing Half Mile Hill parking lot, which was developed under the order of conditions for the prior Edgewood filing. This didn't need to come before you. Everything's out of the 100-foot buffer zone. But basically, we lose the parking that we've been currently using. So what's been proposed by Edgewood is to develop parking spots on the Edgewood property and give the town a license for those spots. The easement wouldn't go away. We'd still have the easement. Al had some concerns about access over the easement to hay the field. There would be no impediment to driving over that access and entering through our gate as it currently exists, and they've shown that on the plans. The parking would be somewhat similar to what we have at Boston Hill, where we have paved parking within their existing parking lot, and the signage is marked to designate those spots for the access to the trail. I have to say at the Boston Hill site, that's worked pretty well. Anytime I've gone there, there's maybe been a car or two in those spots, and I've been able to park there if I've been accessing the trail. There are 2 or 3 existing spots.
2 existing, and we're adding 3 more.
2 existing, and they would be adding 3 more. There isn't any, there are at most 5 spots within the existing lot, and, it sort of depends on how people park, how many of those you can actually use. There is designated handicap parking in this particular area as well, whereas we had a handicap sign up, but technically someone could only really come and just park there. There wasn't really any handicap access, nor would there be any additional to Half Mile Hill. So that's the easement and license portion of the project. The other thing that would happen as a result of the project is the trails that currently connect Wire Hill to Half Mile Hill would become part of is it a license or an easement that allows the trail access? Easement. So there'd be a trail easement that would make those trails actually publicly accessible as part of a legal document. Right now, people sort of pass over those trails without any authorization, but Edgewood has never prohibited that activity, but it hasn't been an actual written, acknowledged passage. The trails would have to be rerouted somewhat due to the development, so there would be a new access point on Half Mile Hill for those trails, which you can see on the second of the plans provided. That access, what I'm showing now is the current trail setup, but that wouldn't be able to be maintained when they put the development there. So there would be a new trail access, which you see at the top of this plan. They would like and are willing to construct a connection to our trail. That, of course, would acquire your approval since it's your care, custody, and control property. The Friends of North Andover Trails have reviewed and approved and issued a support letter
That's
Sure.
The total acreage of the property is 20 acres, and of that, the development is only going to be 1.7 acres, and then we're taking and we're putting 15 acres of that into a conservation restriction with the trustees of the reservation. So there was no restriction on that property prior to, but Edgewood is doing it as we've done to similar pieces on the campus, which also gives folks access to that rock wall piece.
Thank you. Doug, any questions? No. Joe?
Again, none of these are wetland type of questions. These are all, open space type of questions. But so the portion where the trail is looking to be proposed and connected over to our trail, under the redevelopment proposal, you said would be secured within an easement. Currently, there is no easement whatsoever. People just trespass by using those trails, without much of an issue.
The actual, Joe, the easement is for the 30 acres that's to the right of that Edgewood already had under a conservation restriction.
Okay.
What we found out with the planning board when we started this process was in that conservation restriction, there was nothing that said that folks had access to those trails. So we fixed that with the easement to gain access to those trails. In the new conservation restriction with the trustees of the reservation, it specifically calls out that people have access to bicycles, horses, etc., and to walk on those trails. So it's covered through the conservation.
And that's where my brain was just going, is I couldn't understand why we would need an easement if the CR in fact allowed it and designated it as such. You wouldn't need both, one or the other, I would think.
Correct, but the easiest way to do the easement on the access on the existing 30 acres through, from the trustees of the reservation was to do an easement, is what they suggested to us, which we met with Susan and we've drawn that up.
Okay.
So it was fixing a couple of things, fixing the access that you didn't have, that folks just used, so that we made sure it was correct.
Refresh my memory to the Edgewood project, which seemed to go on forever during both permitting and construction. The parking area was pretty hotly discussed during the hearing process. Was that just in recognition that we wanted to have some sort of access maintained and the ability to have a trailhead there? It wasn't it wasn't required, it wasn't conditioned.
It was required as part of the order of conditions for 1398, I think is the file number. It was required that the town design it and Edgewood would build it as part of their construction. They ended up doing both pretty much, just saying, here's what we propose, we'll gravel this area. That was pretty much it. They gravelled the road and the parking area, and we had a place to park. It came before us in meetings. I remember Jack had a lot of comments back then, but it was built, it's been constructed, and it has been heavily used ever since.
So I guess my question goes to, do we need to undo that perpetual condition in the old order?
I think so. Our new town council,
She introduced herself
Suzanne Egan.
for the public.
My name is Suzanne Egan. I'm the new town council for North Andover, and I can address that question for you. In the license agreement is essentially a relocation agreement, and what it will state, it doesn't state yet, but is in the process of being negotiated, is that the parking spaces will be relocated onto the Edgewood property. And if there is ever an instance where they are terminated or there's an issue with them, then those conditions that are contained within that order of conditions will become essentially reactivated, and they will be under the obligation to put those parking spaces back in that easement area. So what we're doing is it's a relocation, and the order of conditions is still operative. The easement across the access drive is still operative, and this is just a relocation of those parking spaces.
But realistically, once this redevelopment is done and the driveway to this other rear parking area is in and complete, is it even feasible to put those spaces back in where the old easement was? It's where the driveway is.
They can be placed in the easement area, not necessarily
Same
in
place.
the exact same
Gotcha.
place.
Okay, understood.
And so in the order of conditions, under those two conditions, there is a provision that discusses who's responsible for permitting those parking spaces if permitting needs to be. And so what we're going to do is agree to just take those two as they stand with the same exact language and place them into that license agreement. So it's a condition if the license agreement terminates.
It's still in draft form. You guys are still working out the details of how that ultimately looks.
Yes.
In-
Yep.
We have no part at all in what the conservation restriction with TTR might look like. That's something they just do on their own. Or do we have some review part of that as well, where it's? I don't think so, right?
All CRs, I think, have to be
Signed off before they go to
by
the
us,
state.
right,
Before they go to EOEA.
yeah, by the
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen and the Conservation Commission, just saying we approve of the language, not necessarily.
And that's what I was going to ask. We're going to see this, we will see the final,
We will see the final language.
before it goes in. Okay, I'm all set. Thank you.
I guess just my concern, I see it's been addressed, but my concern is that there's no, the distance that the equipment needs, the people that bale the hay on the hill for us, their equipment is as wide as 14 feet. So if there's a tractor and a mower combination that wants to get through the access road and onto the hill to do the work, and potentially hay wagons as well, they're going to need, gentle curbs and a lot of width to get through. Previously, there wasn't anything that restricted them, where this is going to be an actual paved road that's almost going to act like a restriction unless it's got the sufficient width and curb cut to allow that tractor to maneuver. Otherwise, I think,
They already made the turn, they were coming in the preschool and coming up the dirt road.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, from what Bob says, is that they'll be able to continue to drive up the dirt road if they so chose, but they
Yeah.
could also come up the
I
paved
don't-
road and make the same turn.
I don't know what route they use. I've never watched them do it.
They come right up the dirt
yeah,
road
yeah.
by the preschool.
All right, so just as long as they've got enough room to maneuver. I know it's a parking lot for cars, but just when the combo's coming in, I see that the dirt road is still accessible, existing gravel to remain. So that's really my only concern, is that's the only way we can maintain that hill right now, if we want to keep it in an open field state. But I think, Al, to your point, is there's a notation by the far gate where it says rollover curb for tractor access. Yeah, so what's the width? Signifying that. So what's the location, but if they're using the dirt road, might there be rollover curb at the dirt road where
I
they're?
think there's both.
There is a rollover curb at both locations.
And what's the width, do you know the width of the rollover curb?
24 feet.
24, okay, that's a good width, okay. That's the concern, and I guess just a question, I'll put it out there, do we have enough parking spaces for recreational users? I count 5.
So there are 5 currently in the gravelled area. Sometimes people will park along the road, and Bob has assured me that people can still continue to park along the road if they so chose.
Okay. All set, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
No questions. Sean?
As far as the current access to Half Mile Hill, does it go across the land of Family Cooperative Preschool there?
No, they have the same access point, though, that where the gravel drive starts is where they access their property, so they are also part of the easement language, I believe.
You actually, to get to Half Mile Hill, you do go over there.
You do go over their property, where the gate is.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
I don't see.
That's the preschool property.
And is that by easement or license, or what gives us the right to do that?
That I don't know, we're not part of the preschool.
And it's not within any easement shown on this diagram.
I don't have the document in front of you, so.
Are you referring to the easement area of the drive, the pond?
No, it's just I noticed that the property line for the Family Co-op is way up here. It's nowhere near where the gate is, and
That's, I don't know whose survey that is. That's not the way it shows up if you pull up the town GIS maps. So that may be something that we want to look at. I don't really know.
do you know what I'm saying?
I know
though?
what you're saying.
Yeah. So, so that's my question, is it doesn't...
I think something may be off there.
Just because I did ask that question originally. When I first looked at these plans, I had the same question. But then if you look at, I think Jen is right. If you look at the GIS maps.
There's another line that goes up from there. I'm pretty sure our access is secure. I mean, that, none of the maps we
Yeah,
have
if you
of
could-
that, we
if you
can
could check.
confirm that, yep.
Because that's certainly not shown on the one diagram that I have to look at in looking at this issue. But you're confident that the gate and the
The signage
kiosk
and everything
has
are
always been
on our property,
all right,
yeah.
all right. Other than trying to clarify that, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Because the old plan you have on here, Jim, doesn't show that property line.
Doesn't show the boundary line.
It does show
It does. It
but
shows
it
it up
also
high.
shows,
Shows that double dash
Right.
line going up diagonally.
but that's not the way the town GIS maps show it, so.
It was just the other lot line. Okay, all right.
It's safe to say that in that area that you're concerned about, there's no change now proposed. It's what's
No,
been, the way it's been, and they're not proposing to change anything in moving forward. It's everything to the right and south and below that.
Right. Well, my original question was me trying to understand what the lines on the diagram, and to try to find out where the boundaries are and what was an easement. And then after that, I didn't really have any other questions other than, yeah, I mean, if it is what it is, do we have a license to use that?
It doesn't make any sense, because the town wouldn't have access to its own property via its easement if the property line isn't that.
Yep, but if this is something that does exist and we're aware of it now before Edgewood does its work, I think now would be the time to try to address that rather than after granting something based upon what we hear right now. So just,
All right, so what are you looking for us for?
So I think
Just to support the concept?
it is, we can support the proposal, but I do think if we want Edgewood to do the work when they do their trail, to clear something that accesses their trail to our trail, that's approval required by the commission as custodians of the property.
Is that requested now? Is that what's requested? An approval to connect a trail?
Well, they're going to be extending an existing trail, excuse me, going to be extending a trail from where it currently turns,
No,
Away from it.
they're building a new trail.
correct, but they're going to extend that across from
To
where it
our
currently
trail.
is to the stone wall, if you will, then it becomes our property, and the question is, from the stone wall over to our trail, our property, we
Can
give
they do
them
minimal
permission to do
clearing
it.
to connect the trail?
Sure.
Right.
I mean, I'm okay with that. You said our trail committee agreed with the routing and,
Correct.
all right.
Then we have to make a motion for that?
I would. As custodians of the property, you're just approving the work to occur on the property.
Okay, just as long as we're clear, this is listed as on for discussion, there's no specific request on the agenda, so does it,
Whether it was
As long as we're-
discussion or a vote, it wasn't going to change. There's no notification required or any sort of, if you prefer, you wait for all the final
I
language
just
and vote
want,
then.
I just want it to be properly before us, so we don't make a vote that has no teeth.
If we're actually be taking a vote as trustees and custodians of the land, I think we need to be doing that in something that's posted as such.
Okay.
I agree with Al. Not to say we can't pull support for this at the table, I think we're hearing it.
is sitting in the audience.
Well, I'm trying to really mince words carefully, because I've been known to be, like, stepping way out of line sometimes.
No, not you, Joe. So,
But I think that really we should pull the support for the connection. I mean, it's something we certainly want. It does connect the network coming out of Wyers Hill and the TTR trail network, over to ours. It's what we want, it's what we had. It's just going to be relocated, and they need to do that on our land. We either do it ourselves, have our trail committee do it, or give these people the opportunity to volunteer to do it as part of their project.
Yeah.
I support the third choice.
Yeah. Doug, for the trail improvement?
I absolutely support the work. I just want to make sure that we're supporting it correctly, that's all, on the correct piece of paper.
We can wait to the point when the CR is done and do it then.
Absolutely. If you'd rather take your votes when this is posted as an agenda item, then that's absolutely.
Just because normally when we approve trail work of any kind throughout the town, it's usually listed as such, notice is given, and there's just a vehicle that makes it recorded. It becomes a permanent record that we approve that.
Right.
That's all I'm concerned. I just want to do it right for both sides.
But Sean did make a good point about knowing what that property line is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important before we vote on anything other than, requesting to reroute a trail appears in everybody's best interest, regardless of boundaries
Yeah,
at the
in the
time
area
being.
where the
And it's
trail
very
is-
limited in scope and just doing that work.
Just so that we're all clear, the area where they're showing the trail connection
Is
is
clearly on
undoubtedly on our land. It's
Right.
way, way north of
Yeah.
of that property line,
Absolutely.
suspect property line.
So I can come, we can have this posted on as an agenda item, and I can come back when all the language is finalized, and then we can have it also for the Conservation Commission to approve the license agreement at the same time. And we'll have the plans reflecting what's actually on the ground.
The work to be done, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great. That-
And the license is going to be for what specifically again? The parking spot? Use of the parking spots? Is that what the license?
The license agreement is for the relocation of the parking spots
Yep.
into the Edgewood parking lot.
Yeah. In a license, it's, does it expire, by its terms, is there an expiration of the license? Does it stay with just the current landowner?
No, a license agreement is not a real estate interest, so
Yeah.
it is revocable at will,
At
but this
will.
license agreement states it is a perpetual grant. And if what we're going to do in terms of the fact that it's legally, it is revocable at will, we're gonna put that condition in there that if it is revoked, then those parking spaces go back in that easement area and Edgewood constructs those.
Next order of business is a small project, NACC 32 Saunders Street.
So this is just a typical small project for a 6 by 8 foot deck on 2 sonotubes on a older home outside of the 50-foot no-build zone. There is a 1-car garage on the site that does violate the setbacks, but it is it's nothing that's been put there illegally. And Heidi recommends that no erosion controls are required, so it would just be to approve as a small project A.
Any questions? No questions. Joe?
No questions.
Al?
No questions.
Deb?
Questions?
Sean?
Nothing.
Motion?
Motion to approve is subsection A of the bylaw with, and I'll throw it in there, with post-construction inspection is the only condition.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
All set? We'll send you something in the mail.
Next one is RDA 66 Longwood Avenue.
This is a sort of a strange request in that it's an existing house on an existing lot, and across the street is a very, I wouldn't say suspect wetland, but it's a drainage spot between 2 homes that has hydric soils and some vegetation. And we only confirm that within the right-of-way, but we assume, just giving a look back on the property, that it extends for at least 1,000 square feet. From what I can tell by driving around the other side of the street from Longwood, there's nothing on the other side. So I believe it's isolated, but we didn't go in to confirm, so we're just filing this as a typical RDA. All construction remains outside of the 50-foot no-build zone on the property, and as I said, there's an existing home, driveway, and everything on the lot. So I don't see any concerns about approving this project as a negative.
Doug, any questions? No. Joe?
No questions.
Al?
No questions.
Motion.
I'll move a -3, the special conditions requiring erosion controls per the plan and pre- and post-construction inspections.
Second.
And a positive number 2, because they did seek confirmation of the wetland line where it exists in the right-of-way,
So the positive 2 would apply to,
the delineation.
okay, so amended.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Next
Who
one
was
is...
the second? Deb? Was it Deb?
Deb.
Yeah, we'll try to keep this easy for you.
Yeah, Deb's
We're rolling right along, I can't keep track.
Deb's the second.
We're not rolling fast enough, so.
So we'll pick it up. Sutton Street, Town of North Andover, Division of Public Works.
So I told DPW I would present these. They're really something I didn't think was worth bringing more than one town employee in on. Oh, that was a crowd, I didn't realize.
Butters.
So here's our Sutton Street proposal. I think we may or may not have talked about this previously. This is the pipe that runs, well, we have talked about it because we approved site work at Chippendales when the town sewer line was not running through the right easement. They had to relocate the sewer. There's a pipe that runs under the road that's strictly drainage only. There's no upgradient wetland. It doesn't carry any kind of stream. It does eventually discharge to the Merrimack, but the pipe itself has no wetland resource area running through it. It's been clogged, and they can't figure out where. There was some work done on the railroad side of the pipe. There's some jetting of the pipe that's been done, maintenance type stuff, but the pipe's still not flowing freely, and they think there's some kind of collapse or something's going on. There is no exemption for riverfront area for work that is not exactly within pavement and not for culverts. Right, so, I mean, there is for water lines, sewer lines, blah, 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 so this is sort of I would have just preferred to say, go fix it, but technically that we can't say that. So what they propose to do is excavate partially within the upgradient side of that pipe to access the culvert and then put a pipe through. It will connect to various structures, and I mean, if you want to get into that, we can go through the whole RDA, but basically it's work in roadway. And on one side of the roadway side farthest from the resource area. I don't anticipate that there'll be any impacts or concerns for the resource area, but you know, there is a stipulation in there that if erosion controls are required, if there's some kind of down gradient impact, that they would take care of that. But I expect this to just be in roadway work on Sutton Street to get that pipe flowing again.
Based on locations, where it is, I mean, you gotta go through.
It's more
through
than
the road,
100
through
feet,
the
I
parking
think,
lot,
even.
through to get to the river.
Right.
So, I mean,
It's just in the 200-foot riverfront zone, and there's no exemption.
You know, this is a sinkhole, wasn't it? Yeah, it's a sinkhole.
Either the gas company or so broke. Long ago.
Doug, any questions? No questions. Joe?
No questions. It's pretty straightforward.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Deb?
No question.
Sean? Motion?
So just a negative number 3.
So
Al,
moved.
Deb?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is other down on North Andover, it's Great Pond Road and Stevens Street and Pleasant Street, boat ramps.
So if you were watching the selectmen's meeting a little while ago, you might have seen that the Board of Selectmen, with a committee from DPW, planning, the harbor master, and myself, worked on the regulations for boating to try to bring them more into compliance with what we'd like to see happening along the lake. If you've noticed, over time, boat accumulation has become a problem. So the town did go through, change the regulations, and has now some seasonal permitting for boat storage and access. The 2 boat storage areas will be the north pump station and just beyond the hatch. There'll be storage available in those locations if you want to pay an additional fee in addition to your boat access fee. There also will continue to be carry-in, carry-out access, but this permit looks to permit the storage first and some improved access as the secondary. The one in front of you here is the north pump station. The planting area that you see is the planting area that will be done once the north pump station is removed. Those racks will be temporary, so they'll be in and out seasonally along with the boating regulations. They'll be on the area where the north pump station is currently located, so it'll require that the pump station be removed and remediated as you previously approved under a separate filing. And access would be over, they don't intend to improve the launch area at this point, maybe something we deal with in the future, but there's a current paved parking area. There'll be parking permits, there's gate access in this particular location, and it's basically just to permit the location of the docks. I mean the boat storage. The second area is the hatch. If you know the hatch, you can kind of see it in the photo there. And this boat storage is along a trail that runs right along a trail and somewhat of a beach area, if you're familiar with it. The boat storage would be within a somewhat vegetated area, so they'd have to remove a few shrubs, no trees. The area is fairly level, and they'd be able to put the racks in amongst that area. Boat storage here, obviously, you'd have to carry your boat out there at the beginning of the season or launch it and bring it up there on the shore. But there's a clear designated area to launch in this location, and the racks, again, would be seasonal in and out with the boating season. Everything is outside of the 25-foot no disturb zone in this location. And lastly, this is Pleasant Street, where current boat access is, and there's been a lot of boat storage, which has resulted in a lot of erosion. So this is the area, by doing those other two things, that the town hopes to clean up. What they would do here is there's currently, you can see the two boat areas. They would discontinue use of this lower boat area and move use strictly to the area that you see on the plan that's closer to the parking lot, adjacent on Pleasant Street, where you access Wire Hill and the hatch. They would install just some wooden or stone stairs into the hill to make access down less of an issue and decrease erosion. There will and almost are no boats left in that area. The parking would be attained by just moving some boulders that are on the edge of the road a little further out to allow people to pull off the street, approximately 5 spots as we look at it now. People will continue to park. I think there's been talk, and again, this would be outside of your jurisdiction, but maybe designating some of the area no parking, so people would be forced to park in the spots. Again, boat permit stickers and access would be required to use the area, but this would just be carry in, carry out, no storage. So that's
Do you intend to police that? And give it all
the,
the institutional belief that they're entitled to use this?
yes,
The way
police department intends to and has agreed to enforce what is in the regulations. They were fully supportive of what was presented to the Board of Selectmen. So that's it.
Any questions, Doug?
No question.
So the erosion that's in that area, I hate to say, I haven't walked down in that area in many years now, but is it confined mostly just to the trail area, or is it on the embankment to the lake itself?
It's on the embankment, almost entirely in that area. So not so much, so if you look at the more northerly boat, you can actually see the path that goes down.
Sure.
In this area, the lower area here, which they intend to abandon, you can see the erosion's far more widespread, and that's why there's actually a somewhat of a retaining wall you have to step down off of, and it's probably more than 3 feet. So this area doesn't lend itself to providing a nice, easy way down to the water. It would be wider, it's more spread out, people have a lot more ability There was talk of planting, but DPW just may use stones and things to sort of restrict access down that area. But this would be the area that would be signed, the access would be, again, the stairs would be in place, we would just make it easier to use.
So no wholesale restoration, just, ultimately, we just let it revert back, confine them to a more fortified trail, pathway down. Litter? Any concerns for litter, or you?
Oh, we just, on November, 2 weeks ago, held our lake cleanup. Had probably close to 100 volunteers, so it should be litter-free at the moment. DPW has installed trash barrels at this location, chained to a tree, and people do use it, and I find people do clean up and when they're there and put things in the trash barrel. But again, litter's always a problem.
Well, what's been going on out there is obviously not good, and this is an attempt to make it better. Let's keep our fingers crossed. I'm okay with it. Nothing else.
Just, I have some questions. My questions pertain to the existing conditions, photos, and not the proposed stuff. I understand the boats are going to go away in exchange for the new boat rack area. That's understood, but that area where these boats are currently kept is a long-standing traditional area for people to fish that don't have boats. They park on Pleasant Street, and they go down in the curb and they fish, and that's been going on as long as I've been alive in this town. Are we telling those people they can't park there and they can't fish there anymore? Because that's a big part of your erosion, is that just the activity of people fishing, stopping where Pleasant Street intersects with Great Pond Road, that whole section down there, that's a traditional fishing area.
As the harbor master on this has been out there a ton observing behavior and litter and everything, and the primary fishing spot continues to be the guardrail. They do park and go there, and there is parking on the other side of the guardrail that people will continue to use. Again, I don't think anyone's aiming to stop that. I think it's the boat storage and erosion issues caused by that the town's looking to clean up in this particular location. Fishing has always been allowed, and foot traffic all around the lake, wherever there's public access, has never been restricted.
We talked about a prohibition of parking along Pleasant Street. If people want to fish there, where are they going to park?
There are still going to continue to be 5 designated spots. Okay. It's the boat access mostly that everyone's concerned about,
no
not the
objection to
fishing.
I have no objection to moving the boats, none whatsoever. If they want to move the boats and do a better job storing them, I'm in favor of it. I'm just concerned about the people that don't have boats, that fish from the shore.
Those 5, to Al's point, those 5 spaces are going to go immediately, and they're going to all be boaters, and leaving, and if they do put a prohibition elsewhere along that street, it's going to leave no place for them to park and fish.
I think the prohibition.
Again,
I'm talking.
hate to say it's not our jurisdiction, but it's a
No, I
concern.
understand it's not a jurisdiction. I'm just asking, in order to try to help it work, you got to bear in mind the people that don't have boats, that have little kids that just want to throw something out there that's where they park and that's where they go.
I mean, there's a lot of that at Ray's Pond as well,
Yep.
a lot of parking. We have a new parking lot over there as part of the Ray's Pond pump station. You can continue to park in the lot next to the Stevens Pond. The Wire Hill parking lot there is still accessible. I don't think it's not required for you to have boat access stickers to be in those locations. I think they're trying to limit the amount of people parking and using that launch area.
Okay, well, I'm just making an observation that that's what occurs there.
There is a narrow road over there, people park off the shoulder.
What are you going to do?
Oh, they can always walk.
From
I
where?
used to walk.
Walk from where?
From the parking area, it's literally 100 feet down the road.
Oh, it's that close?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And Mass Electric, we know we're not supposed to use it. Mass Electric park.
Now confirmed to be owned by Mass Electric. But
Is that so?
Few hundred feet.
Yeah.
If you want.
Okay, I'm all set, thank you.
All set. Okay. Okay, we need a motion?
Just a negative number 3 with pre and post, but I expect to be fully involved in the process when they're doing this work. So.
So moved. Need a second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, next one is there one World Crest? What's the story of World Crest?
He did get in touch with me today and has promised to clear up all miscommunications about filings and who has what by November 30th. So I said,
Did you tell them that was a drop dead deadline?
I do know that they're having some water issues with the Board of Health, and that's really taken up a lot of their time. So, and his office did move, and I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because he has done good work and presented good things to us in the past, and I guess request that you grant him one more continuance to 11:30.
Okay, motion to continue?
I'll move it.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed, and that's unanimous.
I mean, it goes, just on discussion of that real quickly, that goes right to the fact that we haven't had any abutters to any of the prior hearings. The reality is we wouldn't, if there were any abutters involved in this, we wouldn't go this long.
Right. Well, that's what I told him. I said, I had sent him an email that just said, we don't have enough information, we're gonna just take this off the agenda, you have to
Is it
re-notify to
filed?
put it back on, but,
If nobody's being harmed by the extension, by the continuance.
no, I mean, this is their drainage improvements, it's all, improvements to their site that should help their current issues, but,
Yeah, but it's been many, many years. We don't lose sight of the fact that this all started with a complaint, not only with their own folks, which is what motivated them to pay attention, but Berkeley, they were having their own flooding problems downstream.
right. Maybe Edgewood's better.
Maybe we did have abutters.
Be the first time. I think there's someone in the audience wishing to be heard on the matter.
Mr. Chairman, there's a gentleman that wants to be heard in the back. You're gonna have to come up, if you don't mind, just because we have a microphone here, and you'll be on the record, and we appreciate that if you wouldn't mind doing that.
Frank Reagan, EC 1939 Great Pond Road. I live across the street from the North Pumping Station. I just had a couple of quick questions. The boat racks are supposed to be, or you said the boat racks are going to be seasonal. What is the season?
It's in the voting regs, but I mean, it's somewhere along the lines of April 1st to November 15th or something like that. I'd have to look at the regulations. They're online on the town website.
And who's going to enforce, like go around to make sure everything is working the way it should be working according to the regulations?
So DPW will, we have a harbor master now. His name's Peter Boynton. He's, I forget his exact position in the Coast Guard before his retirement, but he is pretty high up there, and he's been spending a lot of time on the lake and on enforcement and in drafting these regulations, but the police department will be enforcing the parking and those sorts of things. The lake regulations are enforced, both by the water department, the harbor master, conservation, depending who's on the lake and what we see. We can't see everything, and we're not here all the time, but.
The primary jurisdiction comes from the Public Works, correct?
Public Works because it's public water.
Because it's a public water supply. I think that's what Mr. Reganesi's
No, I want to be
asking.
real clear. I think the water supply falls under the jurisdiction of Public Works. Under the Safe Drinking Water Act, and all of the other regulatory things fall under the police department, under the bylaw, the harbor master being annexed to the police department's bylaw.
There are certain things within the police department regs which are listed and were updated as part of the the boating regulations. Those fall under DPW, but the police department has a whole nother list. If you violate and they catch you on those things, there's fines and all sorts of things. But
Okay, because living across the street, I see a lot that goes on there, and I know Tuesday nights is a big night, and a whole group of people come down, and they go out fishing, and that's fine, they're having enjoyment and stuff, but the rules and regs say that they can't be in there, I think it's an hour before or an hour after dusk, and they're there till 10 o'clock at night. And then when they come out, it's like a big meeting, and all the lights go on all the trucks. And I really don't care, and I'm not complaining, but I'm just curious about the enforcement of what's going to go
At that point,
on.
it would be the police department enforcing the regs. I mean, you would have to call them and let them know that activity is going on, and they could warn, but they have certain enforcement capabilities.
I don't want to make it a problem for the guys. They're having a good time fishing, they have tournaments, I guess, or whatever they do, but it's just that when the evening ends, all the lights go on, and it just lights up the whole place, and if they were facing the lake and putting the lights on, I wouldn't care.
At that hour, it's only the police department. department that can help you out.
And then the
Nobody
other
else
thing is,
around.
everybody that goes in there, that brings boats in there, they don't, all the people don't have a permit.
They will now. That's the point of the boating regulations. You won't be able to store a boat in there under any circumstances without a permit. It will be removed. And if it's not on the racks, it will be removed. If your car doesn't have a sticker, it will be ticketed. That was the point of doing this, was to make those regs more consistent and enforceable.
I hope it works out. That sounds
Me too.
good. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
242-1688-30 Ironwood, request to continue to November 30th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. And 242-1689 Salem Street, request to continue to November 30th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Okay, going back up top. 242 no DP, number 1210 Osgood Street.
Good evening, Mr. Howard.
So previously you had seen the ANRAD for this site. A lot of my review on this, I had some email questions to Lisa Eggleston about her review documents. This has been in front of the planning board for several months, and is largely finished in front of the planning board. They have yet to write their decision because it had never opened in front of the Conservation Commission. So this is the first time you're seeing it, but Lisa Eggleston has conducted 3 reviews of this mixed commercial residential property. So those letters were shared with you. I'm hoping there's 217 pages in this submittal, so eventually we'll make it to the plans. There we go. Oop, maybe not. Mike, are the plans before or after the?
They're at the back.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But not before the drainage.
No, it is before the drainage.
That's what I thought. Do you know what plan sheet would be best?
I'm going to start on the existing conditions sheet, Jen.
All right.
The second sheet in the set. Mr. Chairman, while Jen's pulling that together, maybe I'll just start with some introductions and, okay. So, good evening, folks. Again, for the record, Mike Howard from Epsilon Associates. With me tonight is Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates and my colleague Rihanna Summers, who helped me fix the easel from Epsilon Associates. Just a couple quick administrative things. We do not have a DEP file number yet. Jen, I do have the proof of mailing, which I'll pass over to you. So I'm just going to kind of give the commission, kind of a 10, 15-minute max overview of the project, and then we can get into 15, 1-5.
Not 50.
Yeah. I don't.
I want you to remember lessons.
Understood. So we are here tonight on behalf of Princeton Properties and Forgetta Development LLC. They are proposing to develop the subject parcels out at the old, which used to refer to as the Forgetta Farm site. They're proposing a mix of residential and commercial uses on the property. As you'll see on the site plans, I'm going to walk you through. The vast majority of the site is outside the 100-foot buffer zone, but there are elements of the project that do fall within the commission's jurisdiction. So I'm going to try and focus on those aspects of the project in my presentation. We're not asking for any waivers from your setbacks. The project has been designed to comply with your 25-foot no disturbance zone, your 50-foot no build zone. The stormwater management system that Jen made reference to, in which Lisa has been reviewing, has been designed to comply with DEP's 10 standards and the town of North Andover standards as well. And then one other detail that I'll walk you through, as the commission will recall, during the ANRAD review process, we made a commitment to the commission that we would, when we filed this notice of intent, we'd include a restoration plan for some of the vegetation clearing that occurred from the geotechnical boring work. So that's included in this filing as well, and I'll walk you through that. So the sheet that is to my right and which is on the screen in front of and behind the commission is the existing conditions sheet. This drawing shows the wetland resource area boundaries that were reviewed and approved by the Conservation Commission. And again, just to refresh the commission's memory, it's about a 14-acre parcel. Lawrence Airport exists to the west. There's I think it's a Japanese food restaurant now to the south, and of course Route 125 along the front of the site. Most of the site, as the commission is aware, is kind of upland fields. There is some early successional wooded areas to the back of the property. Slopes are generally rolling westerly towards the wetlands in the back. There are some steeper areas in that location there near Wetland Series 1. 4 wetland resource areas exist on or adjacent to the property. 2 are on the property. Those are flag Series 1 and 2, which you can see on this graphic. The buffer zones from the off-site wetlands and the airport property do extend on to the parcels. The site is not located in mapped rare species habitat, nor is any aspect of the project or the site located in the 100-year floodplain. It's all high and dry. So that's existing conditions. And again, the wetland lines on this graphic reflect that which were approved by the commission through the ANRAD. So Jan, I'm putting up the the overall grading plan sheet from the notice of intent set. So again, most of the project is outside the buffer zone. It does have 2 elements to it. It has a commercial development, which is to the front of the site, and those are buildings 1 through 4. Here. Those 4 separate commercial buildings, they'll be primarily for retail use, banks, restaurants. None of the buildings, foundation work, et cetera, are located in the buffer zone. And again, those are buildings 1 through 4. And the sheet I'm looking at, folks, is the overall grading plan sheet. Got it? Okay. If I go too fast or too slow, please let me know. And I have a very orchestrated presentation here, though, Mr. Lynch. All the boards are lined up, so hopefully this will go smoothly. The balance of the project is the residential component. We are proposing, or our clients are proposing, construction of 4 residential buildings. Each of the buildings are 4 stories high with 48 units in each building. 3 of the residential buildings are located outside the 100-foot buffer zone. Only a corner of the 4th residential building, identified as Building D, which is at the back of the property, near the western property line, is located in the 100-foot buffer zone. That building's roughly 72 feet away from the wetland flag Series 3. There is a perimeter access drive proposed around the rear of the building. That is outside the 50-foot no construction zone from, again, wetland Series 3. There is a retaining wall proposed in this location and in other locations on the site, and I'll spend a few more minutes on that in a minute. But one of the primary functions of the retaining walls is it does enable us to stay out of the no disturbance zone and the no build zones. The only other building that is located in the 100-foot buffer zone is the proposed clubhouse and leasing office building that is located at the front of the site. I'm just going to point to this map for you. Right here. So again, that's the clubhouse leasing office for the residential component of the project. There is a swimming pool proposed behind that, as you can see in the plans. That's for the residents. Again, those structures are outside the commission's 50-foot no construction zone from wetland Series 1. So again, no waivers requested in that location. With regards to the overall configuration of the site, grading and site preparation work is, again, fairly limited in the buffer zone. A small area near the site entrance at Route 125, which you can see in this graphic that's in front of the commission now, will be regraded to facilitate construction of that southerly entrance drive. In this location, the site will be raised roughly 6 to 8 feet to accommodate the drive and the installation of a proposed subsurface stormwater BMP, that we can talk about further in a minute as well, before gradually tapering down to roughly a 2-foot fill as you approach the no disturbance zone. Those graded slopes in that location will be stabilized with loam and seed and geotextile matting as necessary. The entrance drive itself, a portion of it, as you can see in the sheet, is located in the buffer zone. 24 feet of pavement. There's a sidewalk on one side of the driveway, a portion of which is also in the buffer zone, a small stretch. Parking areas, there's obviously as you can see in the sheet, a fair amount of parking spaces on the site. Joe will correct me if I'm wrong, but plus or minus is 593 spaces on site. Of that total, roughly 50 are located in the 100-foot buffer zone. All those 50 parking spaces are located outside your 50-foot no-build zone. That's just a general kind of overview of the project. I'm going to switch to the utility sheet next and walk you through that. So what I put on the board now, folks, is the utility plan overview sheet. It's just a nice sheet because it shows everything on one page. The proposed utility connections include traditional utilities, sewer, water, electric, et cetera. The sewer line connection, the water line connection will occur primarily within the footprint of that southerly entrance drive that I made reference to a few moments ago. A portion of that water line will also be located in the buffer zone, about 110 feet. Up here, Joe. It's an 8-inch diameter line. The balance of the water line work extends outside the buffer zone from that point forward. The proposed sewer line connection will occur at an existing manhole located on Route 125. That connection is outside the buffer zone, but roughly 160 feet of the 6-inch diameter sewer line is located in the buffer zone, where it eventually ties into a proposed pump station located on the north side of residential building D, which I'll point out in a minute. That pump station is similarly located outside of your 50-foot no-build zone. It's roughly 76 feet away from the wetlands, and I'll just point that out for you. So that's just an overview of utilities. I'm going to switch now to the retaining wall layout sheet. So we are proposing to use a combination of both modular block and fieldstone retaining walls to prepare the balance of the site in the grading associated with the development. I think I'm just going to step away from the mic and just refer to the sheet. I think Joe did a nice job kind of coding this sheet. And again, it's sheet RET in your set. Yep. So, again, looking at that sheet RET, I've just highlighted in blue the retaining walls that fall within the commission's jurisdiction within the buffer zone. And what Joe did with his plan work is he coded the different types of walls, and the table shows the length, the height, and the type of wall in those different locations. So 4 sections of walls R1, R2, R4, and R5, those are what are located in the 100-foot buffer zone. I'm just going to start you with R1, which is over here, folks.
You got a different plan than.
Am I going too fast, guys? Everybody good still?
Our retaining wall plan's different.
Yeah,
Yeah, you got a different plan
this
than we
is,
have.
yeah. The different and they're not bound right. So we're kind of jumping around.
The binding isn't their issue, they didn't do that.
I printed, Donna printed those for you guys.
Okay, gotcha.
Now I get- now
Well,
I
the
get-
buildings aren't on his, from what I can see. We have the buildings on ours.
No, their buildings are.
Are they on there?
Yeah.
I guess it's just very,
Very last sheet.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, it's, I don't know how different, but it's different than what we're looking at.
yeah, it's just different. The buildings are far more prominent on our sheet, and the retaining wall is a little less hard to see.
All right, well, let me,
It's the same sheet, it's just a different, the plotting is a little bit, making things lighter or darker. The information's all the same.
so let me walk you through it, Joe, if something's not matched up. But let me just use R1 as an example. Okay, so R1 is right up here. Bear with me so far. So R1 is in the buffer zone. It's a block-type wall. That wall is about 850 feet in length. Not all of it's in the buffer zone, but most of it, a chunk of it is. The height of that wall ranges from 2 feet to 9 feet in height, okay? Segment R2, which I'm pointing to here in the figure, where this segment begins. Everybody with me? That is also a block wall. That wall is about 8 to 16 feet in height. I'm going to jump to wall R4, which is over here at the site entrance, coming in the southern entrance drive. That wall ranges in height, that's a field stone wall, that ranges in height from 5 feet to 11 feet. And then lastly, wall R5, which again is close to R4 near the entrance to the site. That is a field stone wall, and that wall ranges in height from 3 feet to 16 feet. And we can talk more about some of those details when I work my way through this presentation. So the retaining walls are obviously an important part to our development of the site with regards to the cut and fills and how we develop the site, how we keep sediment, where we want to keep sediment and out of the resource areas. The site will have a net fill, approximately 40,000 cubic yards. Again, Joe, you'll correct me if my numbers are wrong, being brought to the site. As the fill is being brought in, the retaining walls will be advanced upward. And Jen, Joe described this generally in an email he sent to you, I think yesterday. Once those walls have started, the area between the wall and the limit of work can be loamed, seeded, stabilized. We can work the grading back towards the site. You're going to see in a minute a sheet that I depict some of our sedimentation erosion control measures. But they're obviously a big part of our development. It's one of the first early action items to starting work on the site is getting those walls in, working our way back, and using those as a measure to keep erosion and whatnot within our footprint. So I'm just briefly going to turn to the detail sheet so you can see the walls more specifically. I don't know what order this is, what's in front of you, but this is sheet D2. I'll just stay in the sheet very briefly, but there are a couple typical details of what the walls would look like, and that's really the point of this sheet, just letting you know that detail is in there. And again, that's sheet DT.
By the time I find it, you take it down?
I know. We can go back to it. All right, so staying on the theme of the walls and erosion and sediment control on the site. So as I mentioned before, as the walls rise, we can keep the fill, in a negative slope, if that's the right way, away from the wall and the wetlands towards where we're depicting some of these temporary sediment BMPs, which the Commission is familiar with on this site from some prior projects where that BMP has been employed during construction. As with prior filings in front of the Commission, that particular type of BMP, will be moved and developed throughout the site as the site is advanced, and will be constructed where they're necessary to collect and control sediment so they don't reach the wetlands. Once the wall and site have reached 2 to 3 feet in height, plus or minus from their final elevations, the building pads, utilities work, things of that nature can start, and at that point, we should have a fairly stable site. And again, we can talk about this more specifically in a minute. This graphic shows the potential locations of these temporary sediment basins. Right now, we're showing 6. Again, it will be, their configurations, their locations will be on site-specific conditions during the time of construction. Just briefly, with regards to some other erosion control measures, we'll have stabilized construction access points at both the southern and northern end of the site. The erosion controls around the perimeter, Jen and I had some brief discussions about this, which we'll firm up. Combination of silt fence and/or compost tubes, hay bales, straw wattles, whatever the commission determines is necessary, and we're happy to work with the commission and Jen on whatever those controls might be. And then, as we indicated in the notice of intent, obviously this project requires preparation of a SWIP under the NIPD's construction general permit, which is required for sites altering more than an acre of land. When that SWIP is finalized and the contractor's on board, we'll of course provide the commission with a copy of it for its files. I'm just going to go back to the utility sheet just because it's a good overview sheet to present from, but just turning to stormwater management. Again, Joe can elaborate on this as necessary when we start responding to some of your questions. But generally speaking, the stormwater management system consists of a series of BMPs that will obviously collect, treat, control stormwater runoff at the site. They include a combination of deep sump hooded catch basins, water quality treatment units, and an underground system of infiltration and detention structures. We are proposing a total of 5 new stormwater discharge points. Those 5 locations are in the buffer zone, but none of them encroach into your 50-foot no-build zones. We're not asking for relief from that setback for those discharge points. And again, I know Lisa Eggleston's been reviewing this, at least as part of the planning board process up until now. And again, Joe can get into this more in a bit. And then lastly, as I mentioned during my opening comments, during the ANRAD review process, I told the commission, I told Jen, we'd go identify those locations of the buffer zone where some of the clearing occurred to do the geotechnical boring work and test pit work, where there would be no other work proposed as part of this filing. Those 2 locations that I've identified are shown in gray, at least on the screen behind you. It doesn't show up as well in my board. I've highlighted them in green. There's 2 locations. Area 2 is roughly 1,700 square feet in size, and Area 1 is about 700 square feet in size, plus or minus. There is a planting table on the sheet identifying the quantity and the species to be planted. Nothing new here. I just picked species that are out there now. Quite honestly, I think by the time we plant this next growing season, the area is going to be pretty well vegetated anyway, but we're happy to supplement it with these plantings, including monitoring their success over the months after planting. So those are the 2 areas that would be restored as part of this orders of conditions. I'll just give you a very general overview of the project. Joe and I are happy to answer whatever questions the commission might have. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have no questions at this time.
I'm on the fence between saying what Doug said or just saying what I really feel, so I'm going to say what I feel. Wow. This is a huge development with very little jurisdiction on our end, and I guess I don't understand where the planning board is at in the process of their review. Things that jump out to me, if our concern is ultimately the downgradient resource areas which can be impacted, I see that the pre and post condition are almost immaterial. You can make it work. Your problem on this site is constructing it. You've got a phasing plan that we need to understand completely. I see temporary stilling basins that look proportionately minuscule compared to the amount of disturbed area, which likely is going to go on in wholesale fashion, but I don't know that because I haven't heard a phasing plan discussed. I see damn near, I'm not going to say 100%, but well over 75% of the area impervious with roadways and roofs and walkways and things, parking areas. And what I don't see is more conventional type of stormwater management areas, which again may not even be within our jurisdiction. But what we have is Five Falls that Mike discussed. And ultimately, we're going to be dealing with a situation within our jurisdiction right at the very end of the chain, where the whole functionality is driven by a O&M plan that's well thought out, meticulously designed and built, and carefully and meticulously maintained on a regular basis with reporting that's going to be out of our control. What I see is a long row to go to understand what these impacts are. I'm seeing and hearing yardages of fill in retaining wall heights that are alarming. I'm sure you guys have gone way beyond that, but my knowledge of this thing, and Mike, was way more than 15 minutes. My knowledge of this is now like 35 minutes. What I have no idea is where Lisa is with regards to underground detention, underground infiltration in a fill area, engineered fills, what kind of materials coming in, who's controlling it? I mean, I have no idea if that's been reviewed at that level.
Kind of to summarize, she submitted 3 review letters and she's not done. She has more comments.
We're not going to invoke stormwater review. The planning board has done that.
Has done it, and there are 3 review letters. I shared them all with
Right.
you as part of this package, and I asked her to summarize, which I kind of asked questions about her summary and had her write, there's sort of a 1-page, and then she submitted like a little bit of an addendum, but it was by no means her final review of the project. Her overall take is just like yours, that it's a lot of subsurface infrastructure that is going to require a lot of maintenance in order for it to perform properly. But that, as designed, it can do that it can meet the standards. Outside of, I think she cites additional volume, the volume's not being equalized. There's much more going to one wetland than another.
At 5-point sources, as opposed to what was
Correct, but the
more
majority
gradual in
of
the
them
past.
are to the southern side of the site versus the northern side, or southwest versus northwest. One of the,
So, without chewing up way too much time tonight, those are my concerns,
Right.
and I guess clearly understanding who's going to take the reins on controlling that, and ultimately feeding and sharing information between the boards is important, so.
so you have all that information. I think at this point, it's sort of your requirement. I mean, we can bring Lisa in to summarize, but we can, also, I think I would read it first. It is a lot of material. I tried in the summary to get her to start from the very beginning. This is the sort of downside of not being the things not being filed concurrently is usually done for us, where we're reviewing at the same time, so we're all getting the same information at the same time over the same amount of time. The planning board's been reviewing this for months, and you've just had 35 minutes of it. So, I said this in the beginning, that, basically if you do it this way, if you file with the planning board, get all the way through the process, and then start with the Conservation Commission, you basically have to start over.
Yeah. What's going to be hard for us to get across as far as, flexing our muscles is that this construction impact, I think under the stormwater permit, that is something that I think is going to ultimately come back onto us.
Right, and so what I've told them is,
And the phasing on this thing is where this thing fails, potentially fails. How it's constructed, the QA and QC during that process. You don't want to, we have another project in town that was extremely heavily congested, and I see this being far, far worse, potentially, as far as impacts are concerned. So in that one, we were very, very methodical.
And it didn't work out as we proposed, that's the other thing.
But thank God, because I'm thinking that way, and we
Right.
kind of kept our thumb on it, for the longest time while we could. I see that a phasing plan of completely understanding construction and how they're gonna do it and when they're gonna do it and times of years and where the fill's gonna be and what system's gonna be in place to receive waters coming in from upgrading areas they're gonna do later. Those things are all very much in play, I think.
Right, and so, just so Joe can, Hasnola can understand, it was like on that project, we're speaking of Merrimack condominiums, I think it's only a 3-acre site, but there were probably 4 sheets of individual plans sort of laying out what would happen over a certain period of time, and then what what needed to be completed before you could move on to the next phase of the project.
No, I understand. I actually reviewed Merrimack condominiums for the zoning board, so I'm very familiar with that project, and its proximity to the wetlands was much closer than we are here. I think the most important thing to note here is we understand and totally concur with you, Joe, with regards to the construction being the most critical point for this commission and protection of the resources. And as was said, the retaining walls are an integral part of that. What we can do, what we propose to do early on in the sequencing of things is limit the disturbance to the areas in which we're prepping for the walls at the critical points, which are kind of our second line of defense. Our first line of defense is the erosion and sedimentation control. But if we go down there and do minimal disturbance, just enough to take up, there's not a lot of topsoil left out there. So we just need to prep the bases, and on these block walls, there's a minor excavation, there's a minor overdig towards the wetland side, as little as a foot from the face of the wall. We pull that back, we start that course, we start to build that wall. As that wall comes up, we can have that wall be higher than the fill behind it as we're bringing the fill up. As we're doing that, we're creating that negative slope back away from the wall and have all the opportunities around that perimeter to do to do temporary sedimentation basins or just diversion swales, and the entire thing becomes a sed basin, if you will, to be able to constantly control it. We can't do anything on this site without first bringing the site up to grade, up to the higher grades. Where the fill is underneath all of our underground systems. It's underneath all of our utilities. So that's the first thing we need to do, and that's kind of fortuitous here in that we can provide that second line of defense to the resource areas, and then and then work within the site. So we can lay all that out in. Sometimes I think the term phasing is confused with sequencing. And I think here we're talking about a sequencing plan. It's not like we can build, like at Merrimack condominiums, they could build the 3 units in the back, and then they could move over here to a totally different, there were peninsulas in that case, in which you had to go out onto a peninsula and build the units there. That could be an independent phase. Here, we've got a lot of fill down at the bottom of the site, and we've got to work our way back up through the site. Most of it is import. There is some cut on the top of the site. So that's what we're talking. We're talking about sequencing. So limited vegetation removal during that first initial sequencing, and then we can start, kind of working the fill up while we're maintaining the erosion control.
There's approximately 40,000 yards of material coming in. That's in addition to the material that's already in there. That's over the existing condition as it is today, not the way it was back then. So I didn't have my calculator with me, but what's that in like average fill on the site, over 13 acres?
It's as somewhere between 6 feet and 16 feet.
Okay, so it is that much fill. That's
It's the retaining walls, the height of the retaining walls, if you just move through the retaining wall schedule, you'll see. And we're not doing, sometimes you've got maybe major slopes on the downward side of your retaining walls, which can sometimes be precarious as they build the slope and then start building the retaining wall, and now they can't get to that slope to do anything about it. We don't have situations like that. So again, we
Geotech and also they have their own geotech consultant on this?
on
Bringing in that kind of fill without real...
No. We'll absolutely. We'll have constant geotechnical support on site to do compaction testing. We'll have a structural engineer designing all of the walls. But the good thing about that is again, we can start with 3 courses a block and have that perimeter. Yeah.
And again, sequencing is a much better word. Understanding you're not going to be doing one building at a time in phases. I think that is a concern as we move forward, and I think through the process, that's going to be something I'm going to really kind of fixate on.
Yeah.
Leaving the stormwater analysis and management and ultimate O&M plan to Lisa's review, which theoretically has already been mostly done. Good.
I concur with Joe. I met with Jennifer today, and we saw the plan, and the film, and I just saw the walls. Where the clubhouse is, you have 2 walls, and it goes from, I think, 2 to 18, 16 feet or something.
Right.
And the corner of the building is through the walls. Now, is the building gonna be storied up? Is it gonna be that high off the ground? Or?
Yeah, the building will be 2 stories. There'll be a maintenance area in the lower level, and the upper level will be leasing office, clubhouse, tenant amenity. So down below, access from that lower parking lot will be a maintenance shed. So yeah, on that side, when we butt the retaining wall into the building becomes the retaining wall.
Okay, and like I said, I was concerned about opening up a 13-acre site with the grade that was there, and I agree with you, like starting from the bottom, working your way out to 125. So before you would start any building, you'd probably have all the site up to subgrade, no?
Yeah, we would have to. I mean, some of the fills are quite a bit under those building paths.
Okay.
It may be that, I think because of the concerns, and we anticipated the concerns, we have to sequence the project in that manner.
Okay, that I would like to see. Also, in the fills, you're going to give a description of the fill, like, you're not going to use different kinds of fill at certain depths, correct?
Absolutely. So we've identified on our details of the subsurface systems what the fill under those systems has to be.
Okay, we don't have that information here, though.
It's in
here?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in the cross-sectional details of the individual systems.
Okay. And
So here, there's a full specifications of all of
okay.
the materials as well as the fill under the system.
all right. And lastly, is a lot of pavement there. And there's no way of reducing the parking spaces to have more green space, or?
We've requested from the planning board, just as a matter of clarification. The reason we spent so long with the planning board is because this is a brand-new zone. It's a brand-new zoning, and with that zoning came the provisions for grant of a height waiver within this zone. And that was a matter that went to town meeting. It was approved. But that didn't give us the permission to build the buildings at 4 stories. We needed planning board decision, planning board approval of that, or we still need a planning board approval of that. And that's a very instrumental issue for not only the planning board, but for the developer himself, because it defines the financial feasibility of the project. This project is going to have to fund a new signal at the entrance to this project, which is coincident with Barker. And the residents over in Barker have been clamoring for a signal for a very long time, and it hasn't met the warrant by the state. The state has warrants that says if you don't have enough traffic, you can't put a signal there. This project brings at least the traffic to the point that gets them that signal, gets us that signal. So there's a lot of project cost. There's financial feasibility in the project, and part of the financial feasibility was the 4 stories. So we needed to make sure that we understood the position of the board at least, and gave them the information that they needed to understand that we had a project before we really got in deep. Well, we got in deep at the same time. While doing that, we did the stormwater in parallel, because that was also integral to the planning board's decision. But in answer to your question with regard to reduction in pavement, we are trying to share parking. We have asked for that special permit from the planning board to allow for reduction in parking spaces to share between the commercial side and the residential side. So we are only doing the parking spaces that we absolutely need, which are, again, less than zoning would require.
I can't speak for the commission, but I would say that I think the commission as a whole would probably like to see more green space, because there is none that I can see. Aside from that, it is what it is, but it is a very congested project.
Well, we're going to go to, I mean, not to the point of simply having a green, but are we not seizing an opportunity to look at like other LID types of stormwater management, to work them into the landscape plan, work them into the landscape itself, rather than capture everything and put it in cisterns underground, which are out of sight and out of mind and function only as we have hope that it might function. I don't know if we have that. It seems like that race has been run. It's maybe too far down the road to even talk along those lines, but boy, I would have liked to have seen some different types of stormwater management proposals, and maybe they're in it, I just haven't seen them yet, but in the quick blush of the presentation we got, I'm not seeing it. So not necessarily green for the sake of trees and grass areas, but maybe better functions to get rain gardens and other stormwater management functions that fit in.
One of the critical issues here is providing the required recharge volumes that we need. And that became very difficult because of the challenge of the grading. And part of the whole idea here is the mixed use. The mixed use drives the pedestrian connectivity and the handicap accessibility connectivity between the two projects. And the project between buildings 3 and 4 and buildings B and C has a pedestrian spine that runs east-west. That drives some grades, and what it did to us is it drove the commercial deep. So the commercial is actually a cut. And we've got very high water table out here throughout, as we had farming use, so water table was high to begin with. Then they went in '03 and stripped all the loam, so we're even closer to the water table. So those systems up at the top of the site became hard pipe systems with no infiltration. So then it became a challenge to increase the amount of recharge that we provided on the lower half, where we had to make the grades work, we had to pick the site up. So we had the offset to water table, and we could provide, more recharge in that area. So it has been a a challenge to balance all of the different goals that have befell us to try to engineer this to meet the stormwater standards, both state and local.
Is it? Al?
I mean, I don't think I'm qualified to comment on this project. I'm not an engineer, so I just read Lisa's letter, and to your point and Joe's point, it says it pretty much exactly. The proposed project does not incorporate any LID credits. It maxes out the level of development that can be accomplished on the site, necessitating that all of the stormwater management is accomplished in subsurface structural BMPs. So that's what we have. There are no LID credits. They didn't design for any. They designed to max. And so their reliance is solely upon the stormwater system BMPs to handle it. So, I mean, at my level of understanding, that's, I think, what I have to rely upon. I don't see anything else that I'm even qualified to comment on there. So I'll leave it at that. Move on.
Deb?
No questions at
Doug?
this time.
Sean?
Nothing at this point.
Doug? Anything else? You have any questions? All right. Okay, so we need to continue. One other thing, if you made a good point, will we move along in this project? Would it be possible to have Lisa explain to us this stormwater management plan a little better?
Certainly, whatever the commission needs.
Because, I mean, like, it's like Al says, it's a little bit over our head.
No, I understand, Mr. Chairman. I think I struggle with it too in some respects. I mean, the vast majority of this project is just so far outside the 100-foot buffer zone, but it's a big project. I get that. And, my concern is to the concerns you raised, but it's more of when this thing goes to construction, making sure things that are outside the buffer zone and outside of jurisdictional areas stay that way. And I think that one of the key action items, Joe, to your point, is we'll develop a sequencing plan. And, we'll get something in front of the commission that provides some of the additional detail you're looking for. We're, of course, happy to continue to work with Lisa and work through these issues with the commission.
And constructed actually works and is maintained accordingly. I understand it should, and I understand it's supposed to, but I don't see, there's no room for error here. You've literally, you have a maxed out site. So it's going to be, a lot of work for you.
Okay,
So
we need a motion to continue.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you. The next one is the 30th of,
Unless you prefer longer, that's our next meeting. Then we have December 14th. Okay.
And we'll get that sequencing plan well in advance of the next meeting.
Thank you, guys.
Department of Transportation.
I think they're outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are the sidewalks, right, Jen? Jen, they're gonna give us our clock back?
What's that?
They're gonna give us our clock back?
I know, that's why I keep looking.
I keep looking up, I'm looking at the
Well, none of the
TV
wall
camera.
stuff has been put back, none of the pictures or anything has been put back. I imagine it's still,
There's a decorating committee.
Maybe we're getting,
no doubt,
maybe we're getting a new clock.
maybe.
Thanks, folks. See you in a couple weeks. Thanks, Jen.
See, Mike,
Thank you.
Jim, one of the things you asked me to do in the past 2 weeks was to look at the stormwater review and the principles of that, which I did get an opportunity to do, and it's not, certainly not going to be any worse than it is now. It does create a couple point sources, but they are channelizing back, so I am satisfied with that approach, which is, I just figured I'd report that back.
So at the last meeting, I asked for a copy or some kind of reference to the state's O&M plan for this type of structure. It turns out their plans are very generalized, and you have to kind of search through the links to find where they talk about the maintenance of each kind of structure they have on, many, probably thousands, if not millions of miles of roadway. But we did find those, and there are references to them now in the documents we received tonight and what you received online. In addition to that, we asked for the stormwater checklist, which has been provided, and I did have questions, and we went back and forth. I did ask Lisa a few questions, and I think what they've provided me has satisfied all my concerns. Again, we're working with C&D soils. There's a high groundwater table. I asked some questions about how they're achieving their 80% TSS removal that they answered adequately. So I think at this point, the plan was just to enlarge per the engineer's request and per you did present that, but we have the final plans now. So everything kind of came together. We received everything we needed to receive, and if I missed anything, I'm sure you'll summarize. Oh, notification of Royal Crest, as you...
Yes. Yes.
Thanks. Yep.
I even brought the small easel this time, so. We're improving every day, I guess. But yeah, certainly any other questions, I'd be more than happy to talk through.
So they do need a waiver, correct, for the head wall work? So that's a waiver of the no disturb, no build zone, or it's a no disturb zone.
It's technically not filed under the bylaw. I think we went through that last
Oh, right. So there is no...
We are within that zone, but I don't think
A formal waiver was requested. Sorry, I just got to thinking about what was where. So it would be just to close an issue at this point if there's no further concerns.
There's no waiver requested?
No, because they agreed to meet the bylaw standards where possible and to address the off-site isolated wetlands on Royal Crest without formally filing under the bylaw. So I agreed that. I think that's how we agreed at the last meeting we would handle this.
I'll move we close the issue.
Thank you very much.
Getting that new stand. Excuse me. Oh, everybody's got that cough.
Get the receipts.
That's the way to work. That's the way to do it.
Okay, next one is
I know.
enforcement orders.
I got you.
242, 1415, 233 Johnson Street.
That's you, yep. So this, you probably, I know you're familiar with this site because it was before you not long ago for a certificate of compliance. This is the property on Johnson Street with the pond and spillway. Let me just grab my photos of the. So while going by the site, I noticed that there was soil disturbance, and there was irrigation system. They're the same, actually, Sean, if you want to pass one down. Irrigation system being installed in the front of the lot, right directly adjacent to the stream. It resulted in all the soils adjacent to the stream being disturbed. And so when I stopped to talk to Mr. Bresnahan, the homeowner, he informed me what he was doing. He immediately got erosion control and installed it between the work and the stream. And he had told me that he did intend to have sod brought in. I told him that, it hadn't been approved by the commission. The area had been a mowed area before, although not clearly a manicured lawn to the extent you see in the photos now. But he did install the sod just in an attempt to stabilize the area. Since then, we've been in discussions about the work he'd like to do and how that can move forward. Most of it is landscaping work. I did inform him that, work right up to the edge of the stream was not something you were likely to look highly upon, although, again, the area had been sort of maintained in a landscape state, although not as pristine as what you see in some of the photos prior to this. And I do have the historic aerials printed if anyone would like to see those.
Good evening. My name is John Bresnahan. This is the second time I've been before this board, I think 2007. It was my understanding that the dam was there prior to my former wife and I buying this 26 years ago. The pond is man-made, all right? The island on the pond is man-made. The stones that surround the island, the stones that line the pond that narrows under a man-made bridge through a brook that I believe was man-made, on either side of that, what is described, and it is an intermittent brook, all that stone was put there, and it is my understanding that that was approved by this board, okay? What Ms. Hughes describes, there was a lawn prior, it was a pre-existing lawn, okay? And I did, in fact, put in actually three heads, one which is right adjacent to the driveway and two by the brook. But over the years, it was my understanding that I could maintain the brook, and I've done that in terms of the stone, okay? When Ms. Hughes came, she said I was in violation. I accept that. But it was my intention, all right, to have that slightly regraded, to resod it, and the idea was for the fellows to come in, put the two heads by the brook, and the following day, as I informed Ms. Hughes, the sod people were coming in. Now, she told me, and she was right, that rain was coming, okay? And that I was to get down the sod as quickly as possible to prevent the erosion. And I did, but I could not proceed any farther down to the right as you look out. And so I stopped, okay? And as she says, I got the, that day, got the, can you help me on that? What?
Erosion control, the socket.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So that was put down, and I stopped completely. And I'm here to ask if I can complete that 1/3 of what was, again, a pre-existing lawn. Now, it's not manicured, to be sure, okay? But this was a pre-existing lawn, and it's been that way. And as I said to Ms. Hughes, I believe that I've been a terrific steward there over the years in terms of, in a very unique place, of finding the right balance, okay? You know, I miss the turtles that used to be there all the time. When I first moved in there 26 years ago, that little pond was teeming with bullheads, and heron would come, okay? There are no more bullheads there, okay? Because over the years, I think the upper pond, there are no fish there. And it's my understanding historically, that was a place where kids would go and they would catch fish and perch and sunnies and the bullheads. That is, I'm not sure if it's the correct term, but it's eutrophied, all right? The muck is like this, all right? There's about this much of water. And had I not incurred the approximately 29 grand, all right, to fix that dam, that thing would have collapsed and that would be a mud hole. Okay, so what I'm saying to you is that I want to work in concert. I believe I am an environmentalist. If you look at my lawn, all right, I don't have people come in and put all the chemicals, all right, because I miss my fish, okay? So I'm simply asking to be able to complete that. I'm willing to work in concert with Ms. Hughes, all right? I would like to I have, over the years, taken out, and one of the things that she noticed, all right, was some a disturbed area. All right, I had recently taken out 5 burning bushes, okay, because it was my understanding they're an invasive species, all right? That I had to get permission to do that, I wasn't aware, because over the years, I've taken out oodles of bittersweet, and as I informed Ms. Hughes, I've spent 26 years pulling up plastic on my 1.16 acres that is everywhere. And I showed some that was still remaining, and I'm simply asking to, number one, let me complete that project, all right, because right now there is there's soil there that needs to have sod on top of it. So I'm asking to be able to complete that and ask you if I'm incorrect in that when all this work was done so many years ago and all these man-made things were put in there, that don't I also have, and I thought it was my understanding, that I had also the right to maintain those things. So.
So this is difficult when you've got a, property that you've lived in and loved as long as you have, with a relic containment area that you didn't build. It was there when you got there, and someone put it in way before things like conservation commissions ever existed. Really, there's only 2 bodies in the entire United States who has the ability to impound waterways, had authority to impound waterways, and they were the Bureau of Reclamation and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and they fought tooth and nail at the turn of the last century and created the West that we know. But the reality is they had the authority to do it because the government said they did, and they were government agencies. People built dams as they saw fit, some of them large for mills and some of them small for landscaping like this is. But the impounded area is still a resource area. It always has been, always will be. And when the commissions, such as conservation commissions in Massachusetts, were created, that jurisdiction to protect those resource areas that are important to you became our jurisdiction. So my recollection in 2007 was, and I may have the consultant wrong, I think it was Ben Osgood maybe represented you.
It was Ben Osgood.
Came in for concern with the embankment, the structural integrity of the embankment that would seem to have been weeping water, or maybe was prone to, not going to say failure, but was certainly prone to further deterioration.
It wasn't simply the berm, the embankment, it was the dam itself.
Yeah,
it
the
was
spillway,
all rocks.
the spillway in it.
Indeed, the spillway.
Yeah.
It was a danger to go, I had to jump, and you could actually look down, all right, and you could look down 5 or 6 feet, and all it was, there was no support there. They were just giant boulders.
I think that predates you, Jen, but I have a less specific, I remember Benny Osgood, but I have less specific recollection the level of detail that we got into, but I can't imagine that we didn't talk about the importance of the waterway and the resource area. Those things would have come out. I mean, I'm slowing down, but I haven't stopped yet. I'm remembering that. So
You
what I
happen to
think
be
we have
outside.
is we had an existing pre-existing condition, not, with whatever the yard condition was, manicured, not manicured, landscaped, not landscaped. I think I'm hearing an admission that, he might have made a mistake. The resource area is the resource area. I don't think we're going to waver on that. I think hopefully you understand what I had just described, why it is that the resource area is important. But I think what it comes down to is, I think it would be unfair to a person who's come in and abided by stability right away and tried to do some things to make things right, in the short term, and then looking to do things in the longer term. But I don't think I wouldn't be looking to reclaim buffer zone or revegetation or return it to some sort of natural state, which wasn't previously there.
Right, so what was previously there was a edge of wetland that contained brushes and sedges and low-growing things along the edge of the brook, and then some lesser maintained lawn area. What they've done now is cleared right up to the edge of the brook and are putting down sod. So even in actual resource area, you now have sod.
Okay, and that, to me, is what is the violation, because that, if we were looking
Well, the disturbance too.
We were looking to get 25 no disturb and
No,
50
no.
no builds in place, I think that would be unreasonable.
Right.
But putting back what was there, I don't think is not only reasonable, I think it's necessary. And, whether it's burning bushes, you want to call them euonymus or invasive, whatever it is we're talking about for plants and moving them around, I guess we really don't care where they go elsewhere in the yard. It's just a landscaping project in the yard. But in the resource area, I think it needs to be put back to something close to what it was. And, that's just my opinion on that.
It's going to be difficult to do that now that, I think what needs to be designated is maybe a 5 to, what I suggested in the plan, a 5, or in the recommendations, a 5 to 7 foot area, and we discussed this in the field, where he would just install native plantings, whether along the edge of the brook he wanted to put shrubs, or if he wanted to put herbaceous material. I provided him with the native species lists. He could choose what the species were, but, right along the edge of the brook shouldn't be something that's manicured right up to the edge of the brook. There should be some minimal buffer zone.
I'm not disagreeing with you. But on the same token, if we're taking it any further beyond that,
Well,
I think it's where
I guess the issue beyond that becomes disturbing large areas of soil. I mean, it isn't just planting shrubs here and there, moving around. If you look at the photos, he's cleared large areas. He's pulling out plastic. The earth is disturbed.
Excuse me?
Like landscape plastic, the whole yard over the whole front. Yeah.
The prior owners,
sounds like my father.
it was plastic, it was all plastic. And I don't like plastic, and I've spent I'm not done yet.
It's just large areas of
All right.
disturbed soils adjacent to the brook.
You should pull it out. I'm in favor of it.
Right, but maybe not without erosion controls, and maybe not without a plan.
Well, I think that you recommend a small project permit, which.
May I just say one thing, all right, in disagreement with what Ms. Hughes said? The brook, the lawn went right up to the man-made or the man-put-down stones on the side closest to my house. Now, that extends what used to be it does not extend to where the Lalleys once lived. I think you know the Lalleys, all right. Beyond that has not been disturbed, okay? And so I'm not sure, Ms. Hughes, if it might be if this were the brook, okay, with the stones, that's all I want to put the sod down to, where it was grass. Beyond that, it's maybe from here to there that's been undisturbed.
We allow Mr. Bresnahan to return back with a small project plan, maybe Jen could give him some,
What he would like to do
so that we
right
can have
now
something to vote on?
Would, he would like to continue sodding.
Okay.
As a
As-
temporary road.
Right, to finish the area.
To stabilize,
Right.
for purposes of stability, which is a good idea.
I want to make sure, we know what that means. I want to make sure it's clear what
Yeah.
that means.
But I'd like to see the...
Temporarily put the sod back in order, because we're in the winter season.
He has an additional area that's,
Yeah,
that
but-
he started to rototill that does not have sod on it.
And you would not get anything else to grow at this time of year, so temporarily stabilize it using sod, because it's already there.
Right, and then
But-
talk
but-
about
But
have him come
not to
back with a
condone
planting
by that
plan.
discussion, the sod to remain there
Well,
forevermore.
then he can come back to us with a proposal.
I just want to make sure that's clear, 'cause I think I'm hearing us say that, and I'm hearing Mr. President
Then
say
we just set a
something.
date.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, I think that, yes, I think, give him some guidance, give him a date to come back to us with a small project proposal, so we'll have something to talk about.
The window to get the sod down. All right.
Right away.
Yeah.
I think we agree right away is the...
Okay, do I permit, are you saying that I can put it down?
We're still in it. Let us
Okay.
get through it. Let us get
All
through it. So my suggestion is to allow him to stabilize the site now, and then stop, and then come to us with a small project proposal similar to his wish list that we can vote on. Something that we'll have that's a record that we can vote on.
With the planting.
So I would say that the sod comes to within 5 feet of the brook. He wouldn't go right up to the edge, because we don't want him to take away those rushes, sedges, and all those
No, I
good
think
things
we-
growing.
The edges are still there.
I think we agree with you,
In
5
that,
feet.
this particular area, 5 feet.
I think we agree with you, 5 feet is a correct boundary for historically what's there, and then you'd have to get that done, and then you'd have to cooperate with Jen and put together a plan to bring back to us that we can look at and talk about.
We have some sort of reasonable timeframe, and our expectation would be whenever that final plan needs to be, whenever that needs to be implemented.
Yeah.
It very well could be spring, early
Well,
summer.
that's why we're saying, if he puts down the sod now and stabilizes it, it's likely there's nothing else going to take place. So let's just get this,
I
we
like
gotta
that.
move this off the boat.
I like that
Just
approach.
so I understand, so you're giving me permission to put the sod down with the understanding that,
To within 5 feet. to
okay,
within-
no farther than 5
No
feet?
farther than
All right,
5
now,
feet.
some of it is already, two-thirds of it are done.
Right, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about additional, you
Oh,
can
okay,
go and
okay,
do that.
all right, okay.
To Jen's satisfaction of the
Yeah.
limits.
In
And
fact,
then-
it would
so
be
with-
good if Jen went to the site, you go to the site, point,
We can stake out where he can go to,
stake out
and
the
then.
limits, let him
So-
stabilize up to those limits, and then let him put together,
I'll need to write this up.
yeah.
Excuse me, in the enforcement order, so.
Oh, okay.
So by November 30th, he installs the sod within 5 feet. That's our next hearing date. And then we would require that, let's say by March 30th, you present a planting plan and your wish list for next year of what you'd like to do.
How you want to complete the project,
Okay.
all right?
All right, and so the wish list,
You're going to have to work,
Move things along.
you're going to refine it.
Okay.
We want you to stabilize it. Once it's stable, then you can go to the drawing board and refine it and talk to Jen about what's appropriate.
so I have permission to conclude the sod?
I'll write that up.
Okay.
Get that to you.
All right,
Jen's going to write it, so you'll have the document.
okay, all right.
All right?
Is this temporary, or is this permanent, or are we going to decide later if it's temporary or permanent? And I just want to make sure the applicant,
Stabilization.
well, not the applicant, the individual, Mr. Bresnahan, is aware of that.
He could ask us to allow that to be a permanent
Right.
delineation, but for right now, we're going to call it temporary.
Okay.
And then as part of your permanent plan, we'll consider all of that, okay?
So you're not saying me put it down for the soil erosion and then take it up in the spring? I have the right to come to you and,
You're going to come back to us with a plan. What we're saying to you is put it down now. And then you're going to submit a plan to us that we can all look at and we can consider, and we're going to have our expert review it with you,
that's great.
okay?
Okay?
No motion to that effect, to summarize in an enforcement order?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed? That's unanimous.
Probably Monday. if you want to do the sod, you understand the limits of that. Within 5 feet of the brook, do the sod. The rest of it, I'll write up and
Jen,
get
Jen,
you.
I recommend we let him just do the sod right away.
Right.
Because
That's
it's gonna be
Gotcha.
warm tomorrow, he'll have a chance that
Yep.
it'll bond down.
That's true.
But you
The
gotta,
rest of it I'll write
listen,
up and get
Mr.
you.
President, you gotta stay in touch with Jen and come back with the...
He's been very good.
Okay, all right, good,
We've been
good.
in constant
All right.
contact.
I love it, all right,
Thank you so much.
thanks.
Have a good night.
Next enforcement order is, thank you, 123 Bonnie Lane.
You can either have a seat or you can stand at the podium, whatever makes you comfortable. That's good. That's the way to work it. There you go.
So, Mr. Dawson and I have also been in constant communication. He even came to the lake cleanup day and hung out with me. So here are some photos of, I think actually you've seen these, what's happened over time at this property. Some of it while Mr. Dawson has been the owner, and some of it post his ownership. And he doesn't deny that any of it has occurred. It's all, that part we can agree on. Let me just get back to my meeting, because I'm not sure what, I have the as-built plan of his property, which again reflects what's out there, which is, there is a walkway all the way out to a dock, which was on the property prior to Mr. Dawson's purchase of the property. The dock has been somewhat amplified and replaced since then, but it is a seasonal dock and comes out seasonally. One of the things I think with this whole lake management plan and the boat regulations and everything, seasonal structures within the lake are harbor master approved, and I think as to what's allowed and what's future allowed as far as the dock is concerned, I think we should work on that as, with the harbor master. You can tell from the aerials that the area to either side of the dock is somewhat void of vegetation, unlike the rest of the property. And talking with Mr. Dawson and realizing what season we were in a couple weeks ago, I came to you and asked if he could put in some plantings in the 25-foot no disturb zone in that area. You granted him that approval, and he installed native plants. They're all out there, and he's agreed to monitor them through the year. I told him he was unavailable to attend the last meeting, so he's here this meeting to talk about what you'd like to see as far as restoration for the rest of the property, within your jurisdiction, obviously.
I talked to Jen at length about some of the stuff, and she says you've been very cooperative, which we appreciate. The walkway to the lake, I talked to her about it. We thought about like a no disturb barrier from 25 foot from the lake out, and you've already started doing that. And the walk, what's the walk made of?
It's stone.
Just pea stone?
No, it's not crushed stone, it's actually papers, right? Like,
It's an architectural stone.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
It's not a paver, it's
laid stone.
Okay.
stone.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know how it's.
That's the only question I had, was considering removal of the walk up to, from the shoreline to 25 foot, so that we'd have a no disturb. I mean, you could use it as a trail, but to leave it as close as possible, that whole 25. That's what we talked about. As far as the dock, my personal opinion was to leave it up to, we have a harbor master now, and, because I guess the Lake Asheville dock goes out pretty good into the lake, but it has the technology to be removed or,
Well, right now, it's not in,
It's
It's out.
Money can go in.
So-
right.
And not
So-
anyone can just go put a dock. I think in
Permit.
all
Yeah,
the
Chapter 91.
records, you've permitted, because it's still land under water body and your jurisdiction, have only permitted one seasonal dock over the course of any time. the docks that are out there now, there's another one at the end of Bonnie Lane that's kind of tucked into the shore. It's not Bonnie, it's on Kachikowick, maybe, or, no,
Campion.
Campion. There's that one, and there's maybe one or two others, but they're all been out there for some time. So maybe there'll be some grandfathering of things that have been there pre-80s or whatever.
There's been docks out there since the 50s.
Right, but there's been, since my time here, and I think in probably most of your tenure, there have been no new docks installed, and there shouldn't be without permits. Just kind of getting that off, whether his stays or goes has a lot to do with history, not so much that anybody could just put one out there. I don't want to give the sense that they're allowed, because they're not.
No. And we're not trying to be punitive towards you, it's just that if we allow paths to the lake and docks to the lake, that's our drinking water. So I consider that more precious than anything else. So that's my personal take on it. And you've been very cooperative, and we appreciate that. So, I mean, that's just to give you an idea of how I feel about it. I'll just ask the rest of the commission what they think, what we can or should do about it.
Well, if we have a level of cooperation that's already happening, then I'm encouraged by that, and if there's more that needs to be done, and Jen and Mr. Dawson are working towards that, I'm okay to do that. We've already issued the enforcement order, right, Jen? This is just an update of...
We issued it as a violation letter because it kind of came to the attention. We've had some other clearing issues on the lake, and people start to point fingers and what about and what and how long. And when you start to look at the historic aerials, it's clear things have happened over time. Like I said, some things while Mr. Dawson's been the owner of the property, and some things, well, not. Some things done by him and some things done by others. It isn't about being punitive. It's about bringing the site into compliance.
Sure.
And he started right away trying to get that to happen by putting in the plantings. I think with the removal of structure in the no disturb zone, which would never have been allowed, it pretty much brings the site into compliance with what would have been permittable.
So when you refer to structure, you mean the stone
The
walkway
Right.
as well as the dock?
The dock was there prior to 1990 something.
Those photographs, we see that it was there throughout.
It's been there for,
Right.
in some way, shape, or form. This isn't about the dock. This is about the no disturb zone.
I want to talk about the no disturb zone. Isn't our charge to prevent erosion going down towards the lake? And if he has something there that now won't promote erosion, where if we take it out and it's a footpath, we're actually creating an erodible path.
I think he would vegetate that surface.
But it's still going to be used. You can vegetate it, but it's still going to be used.
I think we've always, on any of the properties where there's been access to a pond or the lake or whatever, we've always allowed a path to that.
Okay.
I think we had a violation on Sail Way where we continued to allow access. We had a violation not far down the street on Great Pond Road where we continued, again, one of them, both of those revegetated the 100-foot buffer zone, and were expected to just maintain a pathway, unvegetated. One of them did have a walkway. Again, that walkway wasn't allowed to remain except to a certain point. I think it's being consistent with what you've required on other properties.
Okay.
I was trying to find what makes this different than what we heard earlier tonight, with the other boats and the erosion and the walk, in the trodden path. But the reality is that is getting a lot more use, a lot more people pulling canoes up and down, and
I get it.
this is a private residence, and you're not getting a parade of people up and down the path getting access.
That's just the concern I always have. When there's going to be access anyway.
Jen, do you see that at the end of this existing stone path, that when it hits the bank of the lake itself, is there a fluvial erosion problem?
No, the dock itself exists, depending on...
Not at the dock, at the end of the walkway itself.
Nope, the walkway ends and you get on the dock. And you can see in some of the photos, the aerial photos, there's water where the dock is, and in some of the photos, like this year, the dock probably, I think that's probably why yeah, the water is gone, you know, you can't access the water from the dock, so.
Can I just ask for clarification, sir?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, are you saying, sir, that you want the path removed to the 25 zone? Is that what I heard you say?
From the dock, the shoreline,
Yeah.
up to 25.
Yeah. Fine. And is it okay if I continue, Jennifer's being my mentor in trying to get this
Yes.
done? Can I just work with her and to her satisfaction? Is that okay with you, sir?
Yes. Is everybody else comfortable with that?
I am
Go ahead, Sean, sure.
So are we talking about revegetating the 25, letting it come back, removing the walkway in that area?
Yes,
And concerning the dock, leaving it for the time being and leaving it up to the harbor master to deal with?
yes.
Okay.
That work for you? That's
It does, for the most part.
Yep.
I do remember the other matters that we talked about on Sales Way, and I forget maybe it was Great Pond Road for the other one, but I do think consistency is important.
the intention of the commission to revegetate the 25, which you've already started.
Yes, sir.
And then just take the walk from the shoreline 25 feet up.
Yes, sir.
And then let it, you can leave as a pathway.
You could put down an impervious surface if you wanted to put some stone or mulch, or if you just wanted to have it lawn. I think all of those things would be acceptable, just no impervious surface in that area.
Again, may I talk to you outside this meeting?
Yes.
And you can
Yes.
advise me.
Okay, so we have a motion to rescind?
It would just be a motion to amend the enforcement order to require the removal of the walkway in the 25.
You said there was no enforcement order? It's just a
I can't remember what I
violation
issued,
letter
I'm
you said
sorry.
earlier.
I've been
That's
so-
what, I wanted to know
we've
what
been writing a lot
vehicle
of
we
these
were
lately.
using.
It's listed as a...
No, we did list it as an enforcement order, so
Okay.
it would just be to amend to include removal of the
Okay, gotcha.
walkway.
So you have it as enforcement order 123?
Right,
So amending that.
yep.
So we need a motion?
So moved.
Al just did.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you,
One point
Mr.
timing, definitely will be done by spring, but do I need to do it during the winter? What's your timeline?
Put like April 30th on
Oh,
there.
that's perfect, yes, I mean, I was rather like to make
Yeah, we
this a
do like
spring.
to have dates certain, so.
So you're saying April 30th?
Yes.
Oh, that's totally reasonable, thank
Okay.
you, appreciate it.
Are you going to follow up?
Yeah, I will follow up with Peter on that.
Okay.
I think it's something we need to.
Yeah, we have to
a
put
lot
something
harder
into
than we
place.
can do tonight.
No, I understand. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
For your time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, next one is enforcement order 255 Haymeadow Road.
So, on this one, you had revised the enforcement order to require the applicant to do the delineation. I wasn't at the hearing where you discussed the violation and how, and what the process would be to rectify it. I had suggested that way back when we first wrote the enforcement order, that he, after the fact, file for it. That was not feasible at the time, and you agreed to a lesser requirement that he just delineate the resource areas so we could determine where the violation fell. We required him to do that by November 10th for this hearing, but it was not done. You authorized fines to ensue. I figured he did respond in a letter talking about safety and the things that he thought the wall had done for the property, but needless to say, he didn't do what you asked him to do, so I didn't start the fines. I just figured we could resolve that this evening.
I think so. It was a,
I
He
can
was-
pull out the
He
photo.
had the driveway done, and it's the wall done. But he said it was just putting bulbs at the end of the driveway, but Heidi and Jen went out there, and there was a wall constructed.
I mean, I have the spec for the 100 feet of retaining wall that was contracted for. you know, we have the proposed plan for what was supposed to be constructed out there. It is not the retaining wall that's out there now. There's a retaining wall. There was fill placed behind it, and the driveway was extended to allow him to back out.
There was no question back in the day when this first came before us. But we can be accused of being heartless bastards from time to time. But the truth be told, we showed some compassion that night and cut some slack to understand the circumstances and maybe move it in the right direction. And, you know, here we are, with egg on our face. Maybe heartless bastards is the approach. But that's, we were trying to be compassionate by watering down the requirement to get, let's just get the delineation so we know what the magnitude of the issue might be.
Right.
And even at that, I hear we don't have it.
No.
No, this is the old plan,
That's the as-built plan.
yeah, that's from,
So in the last meeting, he asked about what is happened. This is the border, existing border, I added a few more. This is the existing border already there in the whole, that's the way they built the whole driveway. So this is, I added like a couple of them, they didn't finish up the product. I take the contract to the court, they didn't even come to the court actually. So I'm stuck right now with the court also. So I just added a few more borders and trying to show the driveway.
I don't know what.
I mean,
I don't think he gets it.
no,
Question
he's
before us
saying,
is-
he's saying that he added boulders to the wall, but,
Existing one.
but you were asked by the commission to get a delineation done on the property to show the limits of the wetland, and we understand you have not done the delineation yet.
That's, I tried to go and ask her, try to put on the wetland consultant, they are asking so much money out of it, and currently I cannot afford it.
That's the requirement. The requirement was to get a delineation done, otherwise we have no idea where you are with the work.
No, that's,
We just,
20 years
in other
old.
words, the cornerstone of how we make decisions is we have to know where the wetlands are first. That's the start, that's the first step to every project.
The existing border in 2010 picture, I just added the existing, another
That picture
is the existing one. I didn't change any plans or any layouts or any movements actually. These are the existing one, I never anything actually.
Well, the problem is we have two different stories. We have the historic museum used to add a couple boulders, and we have staff that's gone out there and has described what you have as a wall. So we have two conflicting reports. So the only way we can fix the conflicting reports is to have a wetland delineation to see you're within the 50 or 100. And I feel that you don't have the money, but our hands are tied. You're in violation, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Jim, what? Enforcement order issue,
It's
we,
an 8-foot-high stone retaining wall.
I understand that, and we held off the fines, again, the compassion I was talking about, we held off the fines in good faith, hoping to get this delineation by the 10th, in order to be here for this meeting. And the question before us is it now time to impose the fines? Because I think what needs to be said clearly is, you still have to do the delineation, and until you do it, fines are adding up on top of not doing it. So, yeah, that's throwing good money after bad. And we felt, this is not a couple of weeks. This is
But it's more than
5 or 6 weeks that we've given. When was this first before us? End of September, early October?
When weren't you here?
That's the old wall.
That's the old wall, yeah?
I think he put some photos of the new wall in there. Yeah.
All right, so, again, he understands, he says he can't do it, so we have to go to the next step, whatever that is. I mean,
It's just an enforcement order with the fines.
yeah.
If we don't do, then not just to be penalizing them, but if we don't consistently do what we're supposed to do, then we might as well just all stay home and watch TV.
You have to do the delineation, and you've been,
In that case, I need some more time because I had to find a job to pay for the whole wetland consultant to come over here. They are taking nearly 7 to 10 grand to that one. Currently, I don't have money out of it.
I didn't take a photo when I was out there because I wasn't,
This is,
Have you got any prices yet?
that's not.
Have you got any prices yet?
from wetland consultant?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they.
How
told
much
me.
did they tell you?
7 to 10 grand.
Not to delineate, I think he's talking of, that would be to do a survey or something like that. To delineate a wetland is not $7,000 by any stretch of the amount.
You look at the hang flags
You
on,
want that information put on a plan?
No, we didn't, you didn't ask for that. I wasn't at the hearing, but I believe all you asked for was to know where the wetland was in relation to the wall he installed.
Can she go out there, look at it, say, yeah, we got it, this is an issue?
I don't think we should be doing delineations.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah,
I don't think
I
we should.
understand
especially in
that.
something that,
I don't think that's a business. we wanna
that's
get into.
violation. Yeah, we're all there to confirm lines.
But she's gonna go out and check. The guy who says this is where the flags are, he's
Yes.
gonna go out and say, yes, you're right, no, you're not.
That's correct. That's the way it has to work. We can't be the ones to go out and do the work for them.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that. That
We
just
absolutely
opens
can't do it.
Opens Pandora's box.
We'd never have our,
We're gonna have applicants come in for subdivisions and say, he's,
Yeah.
couldn't hire
If he's asking for more time, and if that is truly all he needs, there's no ongoing,
What do you anticipate that would cost for a wetland scientist to go in there and mark?
I can't imagine it's more than $1,000 to delineate on that side of the property where the wall has
Just to
been
hang the flags.
installed. Just to hang the flags. I can't imagine that it's more than that. We didn't ask him to delineate the entire property. We asked to delineate in the area of the proposed work, because the initial enforcement order asked him to, after the fact, permit the wall. There was no permit. He brought me.
That's probably
I
the
understand
bigger
the work
number.
on the wall is already been
Permitting's
done.
probably the bigger number.
Right, and so that's where you could get into $5,000 to $7,000 probably in permitting. I mean, he paid, according to the plans, somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,000 for the wall?
They haven't finished that actually.
Okay, well, regardless, so,
You know, one of the things you mentioned was that you brought the contractor to court? Is that right? Did you? Yep, and you said he didn't show up?
He didn't show up, the court ordered to pay some fines.
Yeah.
And finish up the remaining work actually. They didn't show up to court. There is another order in the court again. It's going, I don't know whether they are going to appear or not. They are moving around.
So you have a judgment against the contractor now? Okay,
Those small claims?
It's a small client.
yeah, he's got a judgment against the contractor.
Now he's just gotta collect.
It's, I cannot collect because they didn't show up. I used more money to send to the sheriff.
Yeah.
3 sheriffs, they couldn't able to find them actually.
Well, whether they show up or not, it's a judgment,
Yeah,
you know,
but,
so,
I don't-
whether, if they showed up, they weren't gonna show up with money, so you were gonna get a judgment even on, and it worked, it couldn't have worked out better for you to get that judgment. So,
I think that, Jen, because I don't remember, I wasn't at the meeting when the EO was generated, so I just, very simply, did we ever give him a piece of paper, plain English, telling him what needed to be done?
Yes.
And is that in the record?
yes.
Then I think we're done here. We gotta enforce the order. I think we have to start the implementation of fines.
And when are you gonna start it, today?
I would recommend starting it anything prior than to today.
Okay, today?
You know, I'm fine with giving him another 2 weeks, whatever you think is feasible. Again, there's no
Then we
ongoing.
can get some, like in a month, because I had to find some money to anything actually. Currently,
I don't-
unemployment
Yeah, give him 30 days,
is
sure.
up, so,
Yeah, you want 30 days?
yeah.
Okay.
Let's show it in comparison.
Sure.
Let's let the time, let's let the fines accrue in good faith. The fines accrue, because I think, starting today.
But stay the execution?
So let them toll, we're not gonna collect them, and if he files that, or not files, but, you know, has the delineation done and gives us the notice of the delineations, then we go out there and do that within 30 days, they get waived. If you don't, all the fines are due and
When's the
payable.
second meeting? December?
December 14th, I think, is our second. We could even go to the first January meeting. It isn't
No,
gonna,
let's do
well,
the-
I mean, it's, what's today, the.
Because after that, he's not gonna, he's gonna be in the
Oh, that's
snow.
true, right, December
not gonna be any-
14th,
there's not
okay.
gonna be any
So
delineations
delineate by
Right.
December 14th meeting.
well, delineate and making you aware of it so that you can see it.
Can see it, yep.
Yeah, no, the flags have to be hung by a qualified individual.
And I can get you the names of people
Yeah,
that I
you can
think
offer him some names of
that can do
people.
it for less, way less than what you're talking
Well,
about.
we can give a minimum of 3 names, or we can give a whole list, but we have to...
We can give them the list, but I can let them know who probably can do it quickly, and, you know, again, the bigger the firm, sometimes the more
Just remain
expensive.
objective and give
Because
it a
some
list.
of them ask for 3 months time to come over to see my property.
I think I know people who can do it faster than that.
Okay.
Question. Originally, he went there to go do the bridge, wetlands question.
He brought me out there to ask about erosion issues along the paving and the new wall, and showed me the wall and said it had been fully permitted, and I said, there is nothing out here that has been fully permitted.
Well, but isn't there something else he wants to do out there?
He's having erosion issues. They put fill along the edge of the driveway that's just, he has a bridge and then it basically drops off into wetland, and when water rolls onto the property, it rolls off the side and erodes the side. This is not in the area of the wall.
Well, what I'm trying to say is if he's gonna go through the expense, whoever comes out there, to have him get a price on looking at that, so if he has to go file again, he's got the wetlands delineated.
He doesn't need to delineate in this particular area. Where he's talking about is by the bridge, and it just drops off into the wetland.
Okay.
There's no
Nothing that he did is just the way it is, right?
Right.
That other's condition.
He needs to
Let him deal with
delineate
the violation.
along the new
Don't
wall.
add it. It may be more efficient in the long run. The person's got limited means. Let him focus on the problem, and nothing more.
I'm not going to do anything on this property because this bridge is damaged by this truck almost 12 times in the past 5 years. Every time someone come and breaks it and goes over, and because the turn is tight turn, if you don't do properly, it will be gone. So I am tired of the whole thing, like, and fixing this one, sometimes myself, sometimes calling these people, truck people, and they keep on coming kind of thing, so.
That's why bridges properties are probably not a good idea.
Built, I can give you history on it, not tonight. I was on the commission when this all happened, so, yeah, we're not gonna.
You understand what we're doing now, right?
December 14th to get this done now.
Your fine start today.
You understand what you need to do?
Is he gonna make it?
Okay, do you understand
Wait
what
a
we're
minute,
asking you
he's
to
gonna
do?
collapse.
Yeah, I can give it a minute.
You need to make a phone call? Do we need to make a phone call?
I'll go check. I will check them out for you.
Yeah, we need.
Let him sit. Yeah, make the call.
Okay, so I want to apologize for the break. One of our applicants suffered a medical condition. He seems to be okay, but the EMTs took him away to make sure. So we were going to resume the November 16th meeting accordingly. All right, so to finish this business, we have,
To continue to,
December 14th.
so moved.
Second.
but the fine start today. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
At this point, I recommend, since it's getting late, we just take the matters where we have applicants in front of us. The next would be 350 Winthrop Ave. If that's okay with the chair.
Yeah, I guess so. What time
Great
is it?
idea, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Quarter 10.
So this is,
9:45.
you required that Market Basket, before they proceed with their culvert replacement, close out an old order of conditions where they had installed the fence, monumentation of the fence, and no snow stockpiling areas was required, as was a trash management plan. You did require, all those things have been submitted. I have photos of the signage if you'd like to see them. I don't think you need it. You have the trash management plan. But the order of conditions requires weekly reports to me of adherence to the trash management plan. I don't think that's a very feasible or
What do you recommend?
quarterly. Does that seem reasonable, that they would provide quarterly reporting of their trash management activities?
Okay. That works.
Okay.
Yeah, weekly slow.
So is that by that action, are we modifying the perpetual condition?
I
Or
don't-
you're just
I
going to do
don't-
it administratively?
Right, I'm gonna, we can put something in writing to them saying that they can put them together weekly as is required, but that I only want to receive them quarterly,
Sure.
because that's not. Okay. So that would be to issue a full and final COC.
Okay, motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those, if you say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
And thank you for your help tonight.
Yep, of course.
Yeah, thanks for helping out.
Yeah, thank you. And the other one is Dartmouth Street, I believe.
26 Dartmouth, yes.
242-1543.
So if you recall, this was an order of conditions to construct, is this a duplex, side-by-side, houses with garage and driveways? The resource area was a wet swale coming out of a resource area going down Dartmouth Street. Everything has been constructed. We have the as-built plan. There are just a couple minor discrepancies. The driveway is 5 feet wider than was proposed. It kind of, I don't think a walkway and certain things were shown, but nothing is closer to the resource area. And there was some sort of drain put into the driveway where there was some puddling, but that too drains away from the resource area. So I think those are minor discrepancies, and a certificate of compliance can issue.
Any questions?
I'm gonna abstain.
Yes. Motion?
Move that we're granted certificate of compliance for 242-1543.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Please note one abstention.
And one abstention.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay, so that puts us back at 78 Vest Way, which is a filing that was recorded against an order that has nothing to do with the lot. Not hard to imagine over on Vest and Bridges that that might have happened, but it did.
There was a lot of that
So
going
this
on.
is just a release to let them clear title,
Okay, any questions?
a partial, I should say.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is 242-1317, 70 Agunquit.
Somehow, lot 90, or 99 Agunquit, or 70 Agunquit got recorded against 99 Agunquit incorrectly, and again, they're recorded that way, so we have to release them, or else there's no way for these people to declare title, so recommend a PCOC.
Any questions?
None.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one, 242-1417, 357 Dale Street.
Ben was going to remain around for this, but I didn't really think that was necessary, given the length of the meeting. All of the work out there is done. Heidi has photos of all the 31 trees that were required to be planted. They're there, they've survived, extras have been planted. There's a written report. Recommend full and final COC.
So moved.
Segundo.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Next one is 242-1667, 300 Middleton.
If anyone wants to see the photos, the stones are in.
Jen went and bought them, they're all set.
Yep, installed them myself. Kidding, but they're in, and we can issue a full and final COC.
Motion?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
The Meadows needs to continue until December 14th. They may actually have their as-built plan. I know you'll believe it when you see it, but you may see it on December 14th.
You need a motion to continue?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. And the last one is 0 Riverview Street.
You can read it if you want to, but Lou and I spent a fair amount of time meeting with National Grid and GLSD and working out the language that we were happy with, that our new in-house town council, and it added some language that she was happy with, and now supposedly we're all happy.
Sounds like a
Happy,
song.
happy.
Sounds like a song.
Motion?
What is the, I don't see what it,
It allows them to place and maintain,
I don't see what, is it a PCOC or a COC? What is it?
no, it's a granting them
an
an
easement.
easement over GLSD's easement for their 2 additional poles.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
We're adjourned.